Hey guys, it's Lots, and today we're going to be talking about worrying about things that are outside of your control. I feel like a lot of the things that I worry about and overthink about are things that are outside of my control, and I think I need to try to realize that more often because I feel like it could try to help, not worry about things if I realize, like, hey, there's really nothing I can do about this. The most recent example is last week I went on a trip with my friends. We went on a cruise to the Bahamas. It was an amazing trip, had such a good time, but there was a couple points throughout the trip. It was really, again, I've mentioned this before, right before I'm about to go to sleep when I'm kind of in my head thinking about the day and stuff and thinking about the future, I tend to overthink. And one of the things that I was getting super worried about was making sure that the trip was going well. And one thing I really wanted to go well was the weather. So I was the one that planned this whole trip. I was the one saying we should do this, we should go here, we should, do this on this day. And I think since I planned the trip, I put this pressure on myself where I felt like I didn't want to let my friends down and like kind of have them not have a good trip, if that makes sense. Like I didn't want them to, be disappointed at all during this trip because then I would feel bad because I was the one that planned the trip. So the main thing I was really worrying about throughout this trip was I wanted the weather to be good. Because I thought if it was raining outside, then we can't, do the certain things we wanted to do that day, and then the trip would be ruined and they wouldn't have a good time. And I would just feel bad that I made them go on this trip and they weren't having a good time. That was in my head, which I know wouldn't be true, right? I think that's also another thing I gotta tell myself where it's like, dude, we're literally on a cruise ship on vacation with unlimited drinks, unlimited food, unlimited kind of things to do. Rain wouldn't ruin the trip. But every night when I was falling asleep in my head, all I was saying was like, okay, today was a good day, but tomorrow we also need to be a good day. Please let the weather be good. I need it to be sunny. And luckily, the weather was great the whole trip. I mean, it started raining on the last day when we were leaving the Bahamas, so it really wasn't, the end of the world. But I was just super hyper fixated on this idea that if the weather was bad, the whole trip was going to be ruined, and I would feel bad because my friends, weren't having as good of a time as they would be if the weather was nice. I think the thing that I needed to tell myself in that moment is what I'm going to say right now, and that is Slats. The thing you're worrying about right now is completely out of your control. You cannot control the weather. You cannot make it sunny. You cannot, make it perfect. You can only do what you can do. Yeah, maybe it rains tomorrow, right? Let's say that. You could still have a great day. You're on vacation. You could still, hang out with your friends. You could still do stuff inside. Yes, maybe your plan not be the exact way you wanted it to go, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's bad. The biggest day I was worried about was our second day was because that's when we were going to like the cruise lines like private island, and we had a plan to spend the whole day on the island. We were going to go to the water park, the beach, the pool. That was the plan in my head. And I was scared that it was going to rain and we wouldn't be able to go to the island. But what I needed to tell myself was like, listen, it could rain. It could. That's something that you can't control. But what you can control is how you react to it, right? Yeah, it might be annoying that, you couldn't go to the island, you couldn't go to the water park. But you could either be super upset about this, be annoyed, or you could just try to make the most of it. And I think at the end of the day what it was what I said was I planned this whole trip, I put it all together, I asked my friends to be here. Now me personally, I could spend the whole trip on the ship. I don't need to get off the ship, I don't need to go to the island. I mean, obviously I want to, but like if that was the case where I couldn't, I wouldn't be that upset. But I think I was thinking from my friend's perspective where they were excited to go. They couldn't wait. And I think I was kind of letting that get into my head a bit. And I was like, okay, well, if we're not able to, then they're going to be upset and they're not going to have fun. And again, that's outside of my control. If my friends aren't having a good time, I can't, force them to have a good time. I could try my best. I could suggest different things. I could try to get them involved in, whatever else activity we're doing, whatever. But at the end of the day, I can't control their emotions. But the way my brain works is I want everything to go a certain way. If I have a plan, I want it to be followed through. And it especially gets complicated when other people are involved because, as I've said before on this channel multiple times, I am someone that cares very deeply about how people perceive me. And I think if I went on a trip where someone else planned it, I wouldn't be having these thoughts as much because I wouldn't kind of feel that pressure. And it wasn't my friends putting this pressure on me, right? It was, again, myself putting, expectations in my head and stuff like that. But I just need to remind myself that there's only so much I could do, and the things that I am worrying about are outside of my control, and what I need to focus on is what is happening right now, and what could I do to make the best out of whatever situation is happening. So I think whenever I'm getting worked up or worried about anything, overthinking, which I do very often, is to just take a moment and take a step back and to think about, what am I actually worried about? Is it something that I could control, or is it something that, the universe is just going to decide for itself? And after realizing whatever it is, whether it's something I can or can't control, think about the next step that you could take in order to try to improve the situation. And at the end of the day, it's just a waste of time because, the weather ended up being great. The trip was amazing. I don't want it to come off as like I was anxious this whole trip, like I was super worked up. No, this was only a small portion of the trip. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this video. The main thing is just think about, what can I do in this situation, if anything? And if there's nothing you could do, it's really not worth worrying about, which is much easier said than done, but you just got to try to keep telling yourself that. So thank you so much for watching this video. I also want to thank you guys for 2,000 subscribers, which is absolutely insane. I actually hit that right before I went on the trip, and I was kind of like at the beach at this one point, and I was like thinking about everything, and that came up, and I think that's just absolutely crazy. Super grateful for all you guys. Thank you guys so much for all the love and support. But yeah, if you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.